because that's what you're doing as a CEO when you set up an ultimatum with your employees. Are you willing to risk the entire company on that ultimatum? So that's my whole gigantic rant and discussion and views on that type of stuff. Like that's probably 20 minutes of me just straight up talking.
I love it. So basically, what you said is you got to be careful. You're not, the leadership is not self imploding when they do some action like that, which is important. Um,
Yep. It's very important. We could easily take the example of Uber and WeWork lately. Like those are really amazing case studies about leadership that imploded on everything.
I haven't heard what's going on with Uber. You know what? Let's talk about that afterwards because
The long and short of it is the CEO, and this was years ago. It's not new. It's an old thing. The long and short of it is the CEO at Uber created a cult of personality at that company and ended up imploding and having to leave because it just got really sexual. Like he created a very sexual environment, and a lot of sexual harassment was happening because of because of the personality that he brought to the company and everything. So and they fired him as CEO. The board got rid of him. Um,
that's the challenge. That's the real challenge for a lot of leaders. A lot of natural leaders um, are natural leaders because they're sex driven, and that's kind of encouraged in the world we're in. So it's interesting.
that would be something interesting to explore.
Yeah, I always enjoy exploring sex.
Oh, I know that. As I'm sure everybody else does.
I love making obvious statements. Um,
But yeah, so that's leading up and down the chain of command in a nutshell, I think.
yeah, I think we nailed a lot of it actually. So this today could be short. Um, the what one thing that I do when I'm early on in an organization, and uh, they alluded to this, is in the beginning over communicate, right? Just kind of like give them too many details to the point where they're like, okay, fine, I now trust you. Just give me what I need, and I'll elaborate a little bit, right? Because he was pissed off. Like they wanted seat assignments 5 minutes before they took off, right, and so on. Like that's I can imagine that's excessive, but I imagine it came because probably something got blown up and they couldn't identify the parts.
And that's something that we also have to realize. There's a reason why people ask questions. There's a reason they come back and for with that stuff. So we have to show a little grace to them and be like, okay, you're asking me this question. There's a reason you're asking me this question.
Yeah, hard to do in a combat situation. Even harder to do when you're just not in the mood and you don't want to deal with your boss because you feel like you're being babysat. It weighs some emotional crap.
Are you telling me, Phil, that you are not emotional at all?
Oh no, I'm sensitive, whiny princess. In fact, I would say I am a Russian princess. So yeah, yeah. You don't remember the whole "I'm a Russian princess" thing?
No.
You might have been young. Google it later. It's from the Senate. I think it's a reference to the Senate. I can't remember which senator said. So if I say I'm a Russian princess, you'll believe that.
I mean, I kind of believe it no matter what.
Yeah. I would look terrific in a pink Russian wooden dress. I don't know why I said wooden because I'm thinking of those little dolls inside the dolls, I guess. So,
Oh, I was thinking of clogs, like the Dutch clogs.
oh yeah, if you're not Dutch, you're not much, and I'm part Dutch. So, yeah, I mean, I totally would look great in some clogs, and you know, I wouldn't even have to shave. Do Dutch shave? They don't need to with clogs. You're hot. Shouldn't have to shave. Um, some clogs, some socks up to your knees. Woo! Just thinking about it gets me excited.
We have completely lost the thread of this discussion.
Maybe the community too. Um,
If we don't get canceled, this is what we get canceled over. Clogs.
Right? In 20 years, it's going to be, you are culturally appreciating, misappreciating Dutch culture. I'm not, I'm not so good on my woke vocabulary. I'm going to get a book for that. Can you recommend me a good book for woke vocabulary?
Newdiscourses.com. Or is it .net? I'm going to pull that up right now.
Thank you. I'm going to work on that.
I'll send you the link in our chat. It's he's they've got a whole encyclopedia on it on terminology. It's a lot, and they're trying to document all of the new terms that are coming out, and it's just way too much work.
Awesome. I bet it's a lot of work. Um, Very fast moving environment.
Well, and it's a little easier for me to be able to keep up with it because I live in a college town, so I've got a lot of college students that I interact with that throw out terms and stuff like that with to me a lot, and I have to ask them about it and understand to be able to actually have any discussions and talks with them.
It's good to be young, my friend. It's good to be young. Um, you're just younger than me, younger, prettier, more hair,
Definitely more hair.
more facial hair. I mean, you're just nailing it. um,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, yeah, it just gets itchy. I actually have a very beautiful beard. Um, when I do, yeah, no, it's full. It's all over. There's no like missing splotches. It's nice. It's nice. Um, it just gets itchy, and I'm too lazy to manicure it right. I'm like, come on. Like it reminds me of like taking care of my feet. Um, which
Going back to the clogs.
back to the clogs, right? I need to work on that. I'd actually be embarrassed to put clogs on without socks, but I think I can wear socks, so it'd be okay. Um, what was I was thinking? I wonder, right? They're nice, airy, right? What did the Romans use nice little sandals, but they were leather. Sometimes with spikes, I guess. Um,
Well, you think about the Japanese too. The Japanese traditional sandals were wooden.
yeah, yeah, and there's probably good reason for it. Wood has a little bit of padding and natural nature to it. It's kind of nice. I imagine it.
I think the main reason is because when you're walking in it, so think about back to the ancient times away from Rome. Rome was famous for its roads, and they were their innovations with roads and such. So when you go back to ancient times and you go around the world, most paths, most roads in towns were dirt, and so when it rained and got wet, the dirt would turn into mud. And so for you to be able to walk around comfortably, you can't use leather shoes like or leather sandals or things like that because they're not sturdy. You're walking in mud with the leather, they just get stuck in the mud. So then what do you do? What's sturdier than leather sandals? Wood. So that's why you create wooden sandals or wooden clogs, so it's much easier for you to walk around in the mud because then they don't, the mud sticks to the sandals and such, but the sandals or the wood doesn't stick with the mud. And so you're able to continue walking.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to that.
I made Phil speechless with that. There was something you were discussing though earlier before we dove down this whole topic of a Russian princess and wooden dresses and wooden clogs and things like that.
I think we dived into a more interesting topic. Um, where was I? I don't remember again. Was I about to talk about? So I was talking about over communicating, um, and they have this. I don't know if they how I can't remember exactly how they state it, but essentially the concept is that you shouldn't be asking your leaderships what you should do. You should be telling them what you're doing or what you're. what you are doing, what you're going to do. Um, yeah, not what you're doing, because then it's already kind of too late. But if you let them know what you're going to do in a way that gives them time to absorb it and to give you feedback, then they don't have to babysit you. So if Leif says, okay, every day we go out, the seating assignments are the same, right? They're not going to change. If they do change, I'll send you a message beforehand. But this is the driver. This is the guy in the passenger seat. These are the two left and right guys. They carry this weapons. They have this armament. If the mission is for 2 days, they're going to carry this amount of water and so on. These are our standards. And just at a certain point, they're like, okay, fine, you're so consistent. I don't need to hear this crap anymore. Thank you. Let me deal with the guy that's not communicating with me. Um, but I think the good part of that is that if you're doing this, so here's one reason you wouldn't want to do this is if you're insecure with your plan, if you're insecure with your ability to achieve what they want you to achieve, you're going to try to hide details to cover yourself in order to not have to answer questions that are inconvenient for you. So that if you once you realize that in yourself, it's a lot easier to say, well, you know what? Okay, I'll take the little time. I'll give them the information. I'll go ahead and tell them what I'm going to do, and I'll even write out my standards where I have them, and I'll give them a little booklet, and they can read through it at their leisure. They'll never read that damn thing, and they'll be happy. They'll skim through it and they'll say, "Oh wow, this is complete. Okay, yeah, here's all the questions we always ask, and we actually don't care. We just need to know it because somebody else asked me the darn question, and here we go." Yeah, we.
Or the more likely, or what I think is more likely, is they read it the first 2 or 3 times in detail, and then as they start realizing it's all going to be the same stuff consistently, then they start skimming it for what's changed, and then they maybe they come back and they say, just tell me what changed from previous. Although I suspect in this case it would never get to that point because of legal issues. That's kind of one of the things that I've discovered over the years when I'm working on uh, certain documents and such, is even though certain aspects of those documents will never change, you still have to include them in the document because of the legal ramifications that happen. You It's kind of like, if you and there's probably some lawyer somewhere could probably sit me down and be like, well, here's how you can get around it. But it's kind of like, if
It's called a master service agreement.
yeah, that stuff. But it's kind of like, also, if you don't go through and you don't how do what am I where am I going with this? Kind of having a hard time with that.
So the way I would handle it is, I know what you're saying. The way I handle this in my business is I have a master service agreement, and that supersedes everything. That gives our basically our standard operating procedures and what to expect. And it says, unless you get a change order, right, this is what's happening. And it doesn't say what the specific job is going to be, but this is how we operate. This is basically our SOPs. If you want something changed, this is the rules we live by. This is how long you have to communicate stuff, and this is how long we have to communicate stuff, and everything. Like, it outlines the terms of agreement. Originally, I thought people would hate it until I grew up and realized that people love the certainty of this and the clarity that it provides. So
Now, mind you, that master service agreement can change from one client to another. You do have I've had I've had issues where with whereas Ben was at companies, and we give the client the master service agreement, and then it goes back and forth between our lawyers and their lawyers multiple times because they take issues with certain things, and there's like lots of documentation and stuff about, hey, and part of that is that part of that process is the documentation of the, we don't like this, but we're going to accept it type thing. So then that way, if it ever does go to court, the client can sit there and say, well, but we objected to this here, look, see, and you rejected our objection. And the court can sit there and be like, yeah, that objection is good, or no, that's a dumb objection, that type of thing.
Yeah, that gets interesting, but it's purposeful and it's intentful. I like that. It's upfront, it's clear. Every customer I think is different, so this is a good place to customize stuff. And then once you come to this base agreement, it's down to the specific task, the specific mission, the whatever, right? So that's my version of it. If you don't have this well documented process, yeah, every time someone wants to change order, you have to go and say, okay, this is how we're going to communicate. You have this long to do it. Here's how you do changes, and here's, do we agree to this? How do we agree to it? Right? It's tedious.
It is, and it's frustrating and it takes a lot of time. So the long and short of it is clarity is important. I, it's funny, like as I'm coming or as I'm getting older and older and older.
Yeah, you get older fast.
Yeah, I am coming to the conclusion that clarity is probably the most important thing when it comes to communication. So there's a
I think it leads to more creativity.
yeah, yeah. There's a phrase that a certain commentator has come up with that I absolutely agree with. It is it's clarity before agreement, or even maybe clarity before debate. Uh, but clarity comes first. You need to get clear on on each other's positions. So, in a business client relationship, you need to get clear on your position as the service provider, and the client needs to get clear on their position as the client. You need to both get clear on who wants what and what each person wants, and then you can have the discussion and everything. And it's the same thing with employment, it's the same thing with leadership, it's the same thing with everything in life. You need to get clear on positions, you need to get clear on priorities, you need to get clear on expectations, all of that stuff. Like it's extremely important, which is honestly part of the reason why it's hard to get rid of people at companies. If you do not provide a good, clear vision of what that person's duties are, and then you start sitting there and getting frustrated with them for not doing or following up on those positions, and you want to fire them, you kind of end up in a bad position because you don't have any reason to fire them. So even though somebody's an at will employee, it's still hard to fire somebody with no reason. You need a reason to fire somebody. So just like,
And I think you should have a reason to fire somebody. Um,
yeah, it shouldn't be just a random whim.
I don't know. I'm so old fashioned. Yeah, it shouldn't be a whim. This is a bad business choice. I mean, you should not get up in the morning and say, um, Peter looked at me dirty. I'm going to fire him. Right. And then you fire him and you realize he was looking at you dirty because he just had eye surgery and you forgot about it. Right. And then you're like, oh, I just lost my best developer thinking he was being a douche to me. Um, I should have had some balls and bit.